we'd like to thank the following sponsors.
Well, it's the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to What's Trending in Manufacturing. This is a panel discussion, and we're here today with some of my industry friends I've had the pleasure of working with over the 24 years I've been in business here at FeneTech. And I'd like to introduce the panel to you. First, we have John Dwyer from Syracuse Glass. We have Rob Carlson from TriStar Glass. We have John Bush from John Bush Consulting. We have Nate Huffman from SoftSolution North America. Syndi Sim from DFI. Mike Willard from Salem Distributing Company. And Michael Spellman from IG and VIG Technologies. Unfortunately, Darrell Aldrich couldn't join us today. So let's go ahead and get started. I think I'm going to start with the fabricators. As a software provider to the industry, my view of the market demands from the fabricators customers is at best about a 1,000-foot view. So I'd like to ask our fabrication team here, can you give us an idea of what products or processes you see the market steering you towards currently or in the near future? And then how those demands are forcing you to rethink the shop floor. So John, we'll start with you.
And glass, glass panels in offices, all glass doors and such. A longer term trend that we've noticed for some time is more laminated glass. We're seeing a lot of that as a component of our insulating glass products mostly, and the applications there seem to be deadening. So that's a more of a longer term trend that we're seeing.
Okay, thanks, John. Rob, how about on your end at TriStar Glass?
Yeah, certainly I would agree with John in that we've seen a lot more requests for laminated glass, but then also larger IG units with and without laminated glass. IG units that are using heavy inboard lights and then even heavy outboard lights to be able to withstand increased wind loads, and then just being structurally glazed and requiring that thicker glass to handle the deflection. So it's certainly it's a challenge when we're trying to automate some of our systems and our equipment to be able to create fabrication techniques that work for both this oversized glass, this large glass, and then systems that work for all of our traditionally sized fabrication products. So finding that balance there, that's been kind of one of the challenges that we've been working on over the last 2 years and really honing that in.
Okay. John, as a long time somebody involved in the fabrication industry, but now as an independent consultant, what are you seeing from your end?
Very similar things to both Rob and John just mentioned, but in the short term, the office interiors is still strong. I mean, it held up. It was held up during the COVID crisis, and there's a lot of pent-up demand there. And like Rob was saying, larger pieces, people want big glass, and it is a challenge to automate with large, heavy glass. But it's important to do so because it's hard to get the people to even lift glass anymore. So you want to be able to automate, you want to mechanize, you want to take the manual labor out of it. So that's the change in the shop floor that I see, is the continual handling and automation because it's very hard to get the labor on the shop floor.
So it sounds like we're seeing a demand for larger IG units, some laminated glass, but at the same time, it sounds like perhaps because of the COVID crisis, there's a lot of renovation work going on in existing homes, which is perhaps driving the shower door market. So it looks like we're being pushed and pulled in two different directions. One is larger size units, but yet at the same time, maybe smaller units for shower doors, for example. How does that create a different dynamic on the shop floor? Because we're going from extremely large units to maybe smaller units that historically we're used to. John, do you have any comments on that?
Well, in our case, we've been able to redeploy our workforce away from our IG lines and into. I guess that's the main effect that it's had on our production floor, Ron.
Okay, so the equipment that you have in place is capable of making the switch pretty seamlessly.
Yes, it is, and we're just using it for longer. Like we traditionally use it for maybe one long shift. We'll use it for 2 shifts, so we're able to just run it for more time.
Okay, Rob, any comments on that? The large versus small unit?
I mean, I think a lot of our equipment is set up more for the smaller units, and it's recalibrating the equipment to be able to handle the larger units that's really been a bigger challenge. Or picking out a piece of equipment that's going, you might have a wish list of, say, okay, well, 10% of everything that we do is units that are this large size, but do we really want to get and spend the money for a piece of equipment that is only processing 10% of our production? And I think a lot of times that conversation comes down to things like safety and workforce, where it may only be 10% of your production, but it is those larger units that you got to have guys handling those or picking those up, and it becomes a safety factor that it becomes worth the extra money to spend that to keep everyone in the shop safe.
Okay. John, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think just to add to what Rob says, that it's not just a piece of equipment to do large piece of glass. You need cranes, you need more space to turn that glass, you need higher roofs perhaps, you need bigger trucks, you need a different way to load trucks. So as you go bigger, it gets a lot different. And it's not just a case of, oh, let's slap this thing in here in the middle of the shop and now we can do big stuff. It's not like that at all. It's a big step change.
Okay. Well, let's bring some of these suppliers into the conversation here. So Mike Willard, I'll start with you. So automation has been a hot topic for a number of years now, as we had struggles trying to find shop floor labor, and we want to increase the efficiency of the operations of the fabricators. So as somebody supplies machinery to the industry, what are your customers asking for now?
Thanks, Ron. Good question. And also thanks for having me on the panel. As I travel throughout the U.S. calling on our customers, I always like to ask, hey, what's your pain point right now? What's the biggest challenge you have in your factory? And summarily, it's the labor shortage. These temp agencies that we use around the U.S., they just don't have any inventory. They don't have people to supply our customers with. So clearly, we've got to focus on automation within the glass fabrication shop. Years ago, we introduced automation robotics to our edging line, and we've got a dedicated team on the inside here at Salem focusing on automation solutions. And that just doesn't go for the edging equipment that we sell. That's going to be for any type of glass fabricating equipment that you see in the shop. So IG lines, 4-edge grinders, tempering ovens, and the like. So we look to have a product launch in Q2 of 2021. So really looking forward to helping out our fabricators.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Syndi, what can you offer? What are your clients asking for?
Well, through the shutdown, probably the most important thing, I know that the fabricators talked a little bit about it, but the increase in the home improvement sector, we've seen shower doors skyrocket. And from what we do by providing a protective coating, we were looking at the majority of fabricators doing it hand applied. And over the course of several years, as the industry has gone to automation, we've seen an increase in inquiries with our automating the coating process. So now that the coding for the residential market is becoming more of a standard feature, we are now getting calls from all over the country, actually globally, looking into the machine. Because of the automation and the forward thinking, why not have a machine apply your protective coating? So with the increase of the home improvement market, the increase in the calls, it's been a win-win. And so it's continuing with the automation. And for the commercial fabricators, we're starting to see, and you guys have heard me say this time and time again, but we're starting to see the commercial industry embrace a protective coating as well. So again, going with the automation, the lack of labor, and it just becomes now a no-brainer to take the hand-applied coating process within the fabrication to the automation sector. So a lot of the same thing that Mike had said.
Okay, thank you, Syndi. Nate, what are you seeing in the inspection business?
I mean, like you said, with automation continuing to be a strong point, with the attrition levels, the lack of a workforce out there to pull from, getting our inspection equipment on really in all facets of the production line, have an effect on us. So tempering quality is a big one. As you guys said, the shower doors are starting to become more and more prevalent. So there's a lot of need for size control, to automate the very high precision that you need, especially for the hardware and shower doors, things of that nature. Precision size control is a really big one as of late. And as you guys said, with the larger and larger units being produced on the IG lines, there's also a need for larger scanners, because it's a lot easier for a machine such as ours to scan a very large light as opposed to a person or two people trying to inspect something the size of a wall. So that's kind of where we're headed, and it's basically just trying to fill the gaps where people that are constantly being replaced, they have different ways of looking at the glass, different ways of viewing the glass. They want to make that more automated so that no matter who's there, it's always being looked at the same way. And so that's kind of where we're seeing a big uptick.
Okay. Michael Spellman, you wear two hats, both IGE and VIG Technologies. Give us a little feel for what's going on in what you're seeing.
Let me start with the VIG, because I know you've been a big fan of VIG, and I thank you for that, Ron. I think it was, what was the first GPAD, like 6 or 7 years ago when we?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. Well, we all know time flies. Well, in those 8 years, we've seen a lot. It's been a tough go. And now we have 3 big forces in the industry pushing VIG. We have Pilkington, we now have AGC, and I'm still working with Landglass's Landvac. I have a long-term contract with them. So I'll be in this for the long run. We're glazing a few buildings in the Northeast, which is really exciting. And we have a different types of VIG than the others. So we're the only ones with SGCC tempered glass. Also, what's changed since the last time I saw you, which is important, is the building metric seems to be changing now from energy consumption to carbon emission. So I don't know if you're aware of some of the codes, like Local Law 97 in New York. Codes have changed in California, Washington State, British Columbia, up in Canada, and they're now setting up carbon emission schedules, and you're going to have to reduce your carbon emissions by a certain amount by certain years, or there's going to be fines. So the motivation to go towards the VIG is now much more towards the reduction of carbon emissions. So this is really good news for all of us in the VIG business, because the motivator of just saving money in the buildings wasn't enough. Otherwise, we would have probably had a lot more success up to this point. So my goal with VIG is, the company VIG Technologies was formed to promote the VIG in general by seeding the market with units, and also getting people or groups involved in setting up a plant in North America. So as far as units go, we're moving pretty good. We have several residential projects, several large historical buildings being glazed now. And we have a couple of different consortiums that we're talking with for investing in a VIG plant here, a land vac VIG plant in the United States and Canada. So it's moving pretty good. It's interesting though how the motivation has changed from energy conservation to carbon emissions. So that's where we stand now with VIG. As far as IGE goes, it's very similar to what Mike said. We're basically in the same business. Labor has been a big problem for years. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest pain points that I've heard in the last decade or more. Also safety. So I would add safety to that as well. So we need to automate and we need to do it in a safe manner. So we need to really be concerned about safety at all times with all types of fabrication equipment. So it's a very exciting time right now because we're seeing changes. You know, I've been in the business for 44 years. This has been one of the slowest moving industries you could even dream of. And it's moving quicker and quicker and quicker. And for me, that's very exciting.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We do have a question here for all the attendees. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat window or the Q&A window, and we'll ask those as we come across them. So we do have our first question from an attendee, and they're asking the fabricator, what's the largest installed IGU you're aware of? Anybody want to tackle that question? Rob, you're going to say something.
Oh, I mean, probably something in the Apple campus, or that'd be my guess.
Okay. John or John, any guesses? Any?
I know it's bigger than 6 meter by 3 meter, but I don't know. There's some glass being made in Germany, I think, that's 12, 15 meter long, something like that. But I don't think anybody in North America is doing it, that's for sure.
John, Dwyer, any ideas?
I think, gee, insulating glass was the question, Ron?
The question was, what is the largest installed IGU that you're aware of?
Wow.
I think
I'm
we'll
not
just
really, yeah, I'm not in that business. I'm not really,
okay.
you know, I'm not really sure, but I mean, I've seen
They're massive.
gotta be 20 feet tall or more. But I don't really know, Ron.
Okay. Okay. I've got another question here from my own side. You know, I think years ago when we started hearing about laminated glass, it was really driven by Miami-Dade County, you know, hurricane requirements. That certainly seems like it's moved up the coast and inland now. So I guess the question is, what's driving that? Is it, you know, the changing environment with wind loads, or anybody have any ideas on what's driving that requirement?
I think a lot of it is due to security glazing. You know, with the social unrest that we've seen over the past many years, store shop or storefront owners are moving towards laminated glass. You know, as we see new schools and college campuses being built, a lot of that's going to be security glazing, just to prevent you know, the bad guys to come into the building.
Okay.
I think also retention, glass retention in the opening. So that's why you're using now codes requiring laminated glass in railings, balcony railings, and high-rise buildings. I think it's an important thing because liability, if glass breaks, falls out, hits somebody, the laminated glass will retain glass in the opening. So it's that's a big consideration.
Yep.
As mentioned earlier, laminated glass has been the product of choice in Europe in storefronts for probably 30 years now. So it's only going to come here.
And one other one that we're seeing, Ron, is sound control, which was kind of a surprising application. You know, sound control insulating glass is a very popular item in New York City, but even other areas where it's not required by code, we see that as a trend as well.
Okay. And I think
sound control in office partitions as well. There's a lot of laminated glass going in there too.
And Michael Spellman, do you see that VIG will be utilized for sound control?
I do. I think really it's just one more benefit to the high thermal of an R15 window. because the laminated glass will give you almost the same sound reduction as a VIG. So would someone buy a VIG just for sound control? I don't think so. I think they would go with a laminated piece of glass, which is almost is to the same level as the VIG, but maybe.
Okay. Well, we had an attendee, Garrett Henson, chime in here, and he says, I believe the largest IG is in New York and is roughly 10 feet wide and 40 feet long. He can't recall the project name, but he says the largest LAM units on the Apple campus, 10 feet wide by 50 feet long.
Well, Ron, let me just jump in for a second. As far as furnaces go, I have not seen a furnace larger than 130 inches wide. And I think John Bush can jump in on that. But I've seen the length that you can temper to be over 350 feet. So we can go very long in tempering, but we're maxed at 130. John Bush, do you know of any furnaces anywhere in the world that are wider?
I'm not aware of it. I think 130 is the max width. Yes.
Yeah, I know our largest furnace right now is 130 by 310, and we're not processing glass that's 310. We don't have any glass that's bigger than the standard jumbo sheet size of 130 by 204, but it could go up to 310. With those longer furnace lengths, we're seeing more of a better yield within the furnace, being able to get multiple pieces that maybe are like a 4x8 module or a 5x10 module. You get a lot better yield out of the furnace that size, rather than just needing to actually process pieces that are that long.
Okay. So I'll open up a new line of discussion. About 4 or 5 years ago, we started hearing about this thing called Industry 4.0. And I want to ask each of the fabricators here if they've taken any initiatives inside their building to move forward with Industry 4.0. And I guess, John Bush, I'll pick on you and ask if you've seen anything or made any initiative work there.
It's increasingly important to get data back from the equipment, from the processes. You need to be able to measure what's going on, to be able to decide if it's right or wrong, or to improve. So every piece of equipment really needs to be sending data back into a central storage. Then you end up with a huge amount of data and you've got to process it. So it's a challenge, especially in a custom fabrication facility where everything's different. If you are making, just 34 by 76s, it's a lot easier to deal with the data. But when it's every piece of glass in a plant is different, which certainly my experience and Rob and John, I know that's the way a typical fabricator is. You have this huge amount of data and it's very hard to analyze. So even if you get the data, what do you do with it? That's the challenge I see.
Okay, Rob, any comments there?
Yeah, I mean, I think another challenge is that, you're not buying all of the equipment at once. So everything is kind of a different age or different era. And so as you get newer equipment, it tends to be more Industry 4.0, more integrated, more connected. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all of your equipment is that way. And a lot of times the challenge is being able to come up with a process that works for the old equipment and the new equipment, and maybe the way that you collect or pull or analyze that data. You might be able to get it on the new stuff, but you don't have it on the old stuff. And it's difficult training guys to go, we will do it this way with this one, but don't do it this way on this one. And so, I mean, we're always trying to move more in that direction. And it's probably been easier than it ever has been in the past, but it's still very much a challenge. And like John said, it's a lot of data.
Okay. John Dwyer, any comments there?
Yeah, I guess you know, our newest vertical CNC machine is really incredible in the way that you know, it can get information you know, through FeneVision, right through order entry. You know, the software has the machine select its own tools, you know, so it's very easy for the operator to. So that's one, you know, relatively new piece of equipment that works very well with the integrated software. And another thing that we're doing is using you know, light sentry devices and pulling data from FeneVision into the light sentry database to study you know, roller wave and other you know, other distortions in our tempered glass products. That's been very interesting for us. So.
Okay. Thanks, John. From a software vendor's perspective, you know, my comment is about Industry 4.0 is this, as Rob and John both stated, it's really about data flow. And there is an enormous amount of data that can be, you know, collected. The challenge is if you start an Industry 4.0 project without an end goal in mind, you're probably going to end up looking for a needle in a haystack. So there's so much data available. You have to really have an understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve, collect that data, analyze that data. And it's a, you know, crawl before you walk, walk before you run process. So let's spin the dial back now at our suppliers here. And I'd like to hear from them if any of their clients are asking for Industry 4.0 connectivity or capabilities. Nate, any comments there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that is asked about. In the past, you know, we have with our system an archive functionality. So we've always collected a lot of data. We always have this data sitting there at their fingertips. You know, the question has always been, do we need to do anything with it? You know, what is interest to our customers? And so one of the things, you know, that we just happen to have is something called the Line Scanner Management Console, which kind of ties in with, you know, what you guys were doing with that FenML with the machinery feedback, to where we're taking data, we're taking live data, sending it to our employees so that we can be proactive in supporting our customers. On top of that, we're also reaching out and speaking with customers about what they want to see with that data. So we're going to start using a lot of, you know, Microsoft BI, a lot of these powerful tools and algorithms out there to help us analyze all this data that we have at our fingertips, and finding useful ways to represent that and, you know, pass it back to our customers so they can use the data we have to make better business decisions, you know, track defects kind of upstream, where are they coming from, things of that nature, as well as hopefully that data will also help our customers maintain other equipment within their production line.
Okay. Michael Spellman, anything to add?
Not really. As far as the machine end goes, I believe we've been always a step ahead as far as getting to full automation. And as we've known each other over the years, we keep getting closer and closer, and I keep loving getting a hold of you and telling you how we've progressed. And every year we progress dramatically. We're at the point now where we have full lights out automation for custom glass fabrication, heavy glass. You would keep the lights on because it's so cool to see, but it's very, very expensive. But we're ready for you when the industry does grow more into the 4.0. So from the heavy glass perspective, we finally accomplished that. From the not heavy glass through land glass, we're also developed full automation there too. So I think from the machinery standpoint, we'll be ready for the 4.0 when people like yourselves get involved and figure out how to grab all this data and make it all work. So from a hardware standpoint, we're really ready. We're ready now.
Okay.
But you know, my world is more in the machinery end. So
Sure. Okay. Syndi, anything with in your world?
You know, I would say it's just kind of coming to fruition. I would say, you know, having a automated machine that applies a protective coating is relatively new to the market. So I would call it maybe 1 to 2 years old. And then we're still a little behind in Industry 4.0, at least with what the industry is asking for. But with our newest machine, we've actually really made an effort to find out what the customer wants, especially with the online system. And it is critically important to be able to, when the industry is ready, participate with all the automation. So when we went out to market, we asked, okay, what do you want with this machine? What do you want to track maintenance? Do you want to track the operational component? How many lights are you coating a day? You know, and so all the feedback we got from the industry was going toward Industry 4.0 to be able to work with the other machines in the production facility. And so we made an effort to ask the industry what they wanted, to implement it in the machine. And so we are ready for when the industry wants our machine to come into the production with all the data analytics. So we're ready, just like Michael Spellman said, and just waiting.
Okay. Mike Willard, how about you guys? You guys are involved heavily in robotics, and that might play a closer role to Industry 4.0.
Yes, it certainly does, Ron. Our customers are certainly asking for it more frequently, and Rob Carlson said it right just a few moments ago. The newer equipment that's coming out is Industry 4.0 capable. The challenge is with your 7-year-old piece of equipment on the floor, you know, that's not Industry 4.0. So you have to do some sort of workaround on that. But certainly with the newer lines that we're selling into the North American market, we've got that capability. You know, certainly our North Class tempering ovens have that capability. And like Michael and Syndi said, we're ready.
Okay. Well, from a software vendor's perspective, we're ready too. So what we need is the fabricators to step up and say, we really want this, and we really want this to do X, Y, and Z. Industry 4.0 is a very broad term, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I think in our industry, it could clearly be used to collect real-time machine data so that we could turn our maintenance departments from reactive organizations to proactive organizations to eliminate and minimize downtime. Okay, so I've got a few more questions here, and I want to start with our fabricator friends. So, John Dwyer, if you could assume that a steady stream of orders are flowing in your office door, what's the one thing regarding your shop floor that would keep you up at night?
Well, right now, I think it's COVID. You know, fortunately, we've been we haven't had any cases here in our organization. We've been very blessed that way, but that's one thing that does concern me. So another one right now is spare parts and technicians for equipment. We've tried to beef up our spare parts inventory just to try to make sure that that we've actually got in the building parts that we think could potentially fail. So we've had one case where a part that we would normally expect to get next day was just not available, and I forget whether that was an inventory issue or whether it was an air freight or common carrier issue. But some of the logistics with spare parts and technicians are a concern right now. And our main suppliers, I think, are doing a great job right now. The float glass manufacturers, our primary aluminum manufacturer, but some of the oddball things that we seem to buy, we seem to struggle with a little bit for whatever reason. So it's maybe a unique grid or air spacer or something. But so that's another thing that is a concern right now. Just sort of logistics issues with spare parts, technicians, and sort of oddball things that we use from time to time.
Okay, thanks. John Bush, what about you?
I think John Dwyer made some great points there, and I would agree with them. the equipment guys here that, Michael, they do a great job getting us spare parts, but even overnight is not fast enough. So you've got to have the spare parts in the facility, and GGI has well over $500,000 worth of spare parts in the facility right now, because and our downtime is bad because our lead times are so short. So we use our own parts and we replenish it from our suppliers, and they do a great job. John, Dwyer also mentioned the technicians. The equipment is getting much more sophisticated. It's not just anymore tightening a chain and greasing a chain on a washer anymore. It's sophisticated PLC drives, interconnected systems, and you need very good engineers and technicians in the facility at all times. If you're trying to run 2 shifts, things don't go down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They go down at 9 o'clock at night. So you have to have good people all the way through the shifts. You've got to have good technicians, and it's extremely hard to find them. We've struggled. We've just actually hired an automotive technician, which we thought, nah. In the past, automotive guys haven't really been good for factories because they don't understand 3-phase and things like that. But this guy is great because he understands computerized diagnostics. He gets into all this sort of stuff that's in automobiles now, and he's learning fast, and he's doing a great job. But we still struggle. We're looking for technicians all the time, and it's hard work because you need them to work shifts. You need them in on Saturday mornings to do maintenance. You can't afford to take equipment down for maintenance during the week. It's a big capital investment, so you have to keep it running. So you have to do the planned maintenance at weekends, and people like to have the weekends off. So that's the challenge. And the other challenge about what keeps you awake at night is, as we've already mentioned, just the labor shortage in general and not technicians.
Okay. Rob, how about you?
Yeah,
awake at night?
I would definitely agree with the technicians aspect right now with COVID and no one being able to travel to the U.S. from Europe. Most of our equipment is all European equipment, and while our American-based suppliers have done a really good job in using their local technicians to fill in the gaps, most of them relied pretty heavily on having European technicians being able to come over and assist and help them. And so everybody's stretched very thin right now. And it's become very difficult to move forward with any sort of new machinery or new installations. And even like you were asking before, like the 4.0 type stuff, that it seems like a lot of that's on hold right now until we can get somebody, one of the engineers from different factories in the shop, seeing the equipment in person. So you kind of just put Band-Aids on things and move forward and try to stock all the right, as much of the right spare parts that you can. But it's expensive, and it's, you try to guess as well as you can, but not having access to those technicians right now is really been very hard for us. So that's a big thing that, what's going to go down next, and then we're not going to have somebody to be able to help us get it back up and running, or we're going to be 18th on the list, and we'll be down until they can get here.
Well, I think so. I think I heard two things primarily jump out at me there. The first is that clearly you got to keep COVID out of your building, because the manpower that you have available is somewhat scarce right now. We got to preserve those resources. And the second thing I heard was a strong case being made for Industry 4.0 and data collection at the machinery, so that the maintenance department become a more proactive group of people. And we can look at things like square footage processed or linear inch processed And we can look at things like amperage of a motor so that we can determine when things need to be maintained as opposed to waiting until the last minute when it breaks at 2 in the morning, as John said. So I think that's a really interesting point because these machines keep getting more and more complex. And I think that we need to take the smarts out of the machine and out of the manuals and out of the technician's head and put it programmatically into something that can be a little bit more proactive. So we've got a few questions coming in here. I'll see if so we've got well, we're blessed to have Nicole Harris here online with us, and she's asking the question of what are some examples of data you'd want to gather or questions you want to answer with Industry 4.0? And that can be from any of us panelists because we have machine suppliers here as well as fabricators. Does anybody want to take a stab at that?
I think from you mentioned it, Ron, we need to be able to see motor amperages, see when things are starting to bind up, amperages are increasing, something's changing from the norm. But on a machine that might have 50, 60 motors, it's going to be, again, as I said earlier, it's an awful lot of data, and trying to decide what the normal range is. Remember, how company X runs a machine is different to how company Y might run the same machine. So normal to X may be different to normal to Y. So you can't just have all this data. You've got to set parameters at which alarm bells start ringing, or warning bells or alarm bells. So it's not just a case of getting the data, it's dealing with it, analyzing it, setting the limits. It's a huge task.
Okay. Anybody else care to chime in on that?
Ron, I can just jump on that. We've seen probably the number one question we get from fabricators on the machine is really the maintenance schedule, what parts need to be replaced, if so, when, how do we do that? So tracking the maintenance, giving, the alerts, weeks, maybe months, even in advance, so that the fabricator can prep for it. That's what we seem to be the number one question. If we were to, when we're ready for the Industry 4.0 is the maintenance of the machines and keeping track of all the spare parts.
Okay.
Ron, I think on the consumable supply front, what's valuable for our customers to measure would be your diamond wheel life, your core drill life, routers, things like that. You want to maximize the use of those wheels, but then you can also anticipate when those wheels are going to have to be changed out by the operator. So certainly usage of those consumable supplies would be very, very valuable for the customers.
Yeah, Ron,
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say from, kind of a slightly different approach, but the quality control side of things, I think, and Nate could certainly agree with this, but we see, have seen an increasing request for being able to prove the quality of the insulated units that we're making from either distortion or defects and argon content. And so having all of that data associated with each individual light is complicated, and it's a lot of data. And especially when you're taking something and you're running it through a 1200 degree oven, having something that stays on the glass that's able to identify each individual piece and track it all the way through the shop is a difficult process. So, but that's a big thing that we see now with a lot of specifications, is they want to prove that the glass is to this level of quality.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that too, and that's one thing that we're trying to focus on too, is there seems to be there can always be a disconnect between what is stipulated in the rules or standards or regulations versus how a company actually adheres to those rules and regulations on the shop floor versus a guy saying, well, that scratch to me is okay. Well, based on the standards, technically that's bad, but we have to kind of solve that disconnect between what are the rules, what's objective to the operator, and then try to bring those together so that quality inspection tools such as ourselves are able to truly say, based on maybe company X's rules versus company Y rules, what is good and what is bad. And then on top of that, track all that information with software providers such as yourself, Ron, where we have that direct connect information where I have this specific light tied to this specific scan from this specific machine, and then we can tie all that together to make educated decisions on future production.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple other questions here. We talked about downtime and the difficulties with getting technicians on site quickly and perhaps spare parts. And there's a question here that, do you fabricators maintain a manual backup line process? Anybody? Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always find a way to move forward. There's never a time when, if something goes down, you got to figure out how to keep putting glass out of the shop. And so we do have backup manual processes for a lot of the systems. But as things move towards a more automated format, that manual process starts to become more and more obsolete, and it becomes difficult to go back to that. And the focus becomes how to get that automated machine up and running faster or stay on longer, rather than trying to retain a manual process in the event that the automated process goes down.
I think the real answer is you can like Rob suggests, you can no longer rely on manual processes because they rely so much on operators and trying to get consistency and output out of manual systems is very challenging. So really, you've got to have parallel processing lines. The reliable fabricators are not going to have one tempered furnace. You've got to have two tempered furnaces, because if one goes down, you're going to have to run the other one around the clock to keep up. And the same with polishing equipment. I mean, the equipment suppliers are going to love me here, because I've heard Michael Spellman say before, well, you need to buy two in case one goes down. So
John,
you need parallel lines.
Okay. Well, I've got another question here. This comes from an industry blogger that I look forward to his blog every Sunday morning, Max Perlstein, and he's asking the machinery suppliers here, if you're starting a new glass fab plant, what's the one piece of machinery that's an absolute must in the current age of hard to find labor? Mike Willard, what would be the first piece of machinery you put in a new glass fab plant?
oh boy. Obviously, it depends upon what type of glass products you're going to fabricate. Let's go with the high ticket item, Ron. We'll say a tempering line. Michael, I'm sure you would agree with that. Or maybe have a different opinion.
No, for sure. You're going to need a tempering furnace if you want to make any money.
Yeah,
You gotta
exactly.
start with a cutting table?
You're going to need a cutting table. You're also going to need something to clean the glass, as I don't see many people sell dirty glass. So once you knock down a cutting table, a furnace, and a glass washer, I guess the rest is either necessary machines or luxury machines.
Mhm.
And if I was to start new, I would start with machines that are 4.0 ready, capable machines. I'm a great lover of the horizontal automated machines by Forvet, and I would consider that to be the next machine that I'd put in, like John Bush did. Start with a game changer. So that's my belief.
Syndi, what would you put in?
Thank you, Ron. I would absolutely, again, looking into the residential market first, if you're going that route, I would put in a protective coating machine that automates the process. It's interesting to hear everybody. It's the irony with what we do is we manufacture a protective coating and now the machinery. And for the majority of time, people have been applying it by hand. But the inconsistencies with manual labor is, unbelievable. And as we all know that. So the protective coating machine is just the next generation for the folks who are going to offer shower doors, and then the commercial market. Quite frankly, to me, it's a no-brainer. Not that I'm biased, but if you want to get into the shower door market and you want to differentiate yourself and you want to have a consistent coating every time, you absolutely need a machine. The proof is in the pudding. We've been very, very fortunate. We sold 6 of our new machines. And I only say that now because you can see the industry. The industry is shifting, and it's not just us. We're seeing protective coating machines come from, all of our competitors. And it's just the way the industry is going. So we're very grateful. Thanks, Ron.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to add my 2 cents here. We're all building a house. The first thing we do is pour a solid foundation. And in a modern glass fabrication facility, the foundation's got to be a software system that has the flexibility to drive the business. So I'll get off my pedestal now.
One thing I would like to add in a North American glass fabrication facility, and this really would need the help of the glass suppliers, is to have a float liner type system where the float truck backs up and drives away, leaves the rack, and the loading system can pick up the glass right off the rack without having to unload packs of glass with a crane. I think the idea that North America is still unloading packs of glass with a crane is archaic, and it's the one thing that really is missing in North America. Nobody in Europe would dream of unloading a float truck with a crane.
I agree with you 100%, John.
Okay. Well, we've got, Nicole Harris makes a comment here that I have to throw out as well. She'll say that she adds that you must join the NGA to get education, codes, technical information, and more. So,
And no matter what piece of equipment you install, you're always going to need inspection equipment. Don't forget that. Make sure it's doing work, especially in this world of automation.
I agree with that, Nate.
all good points. Okay, we've got, looks like 5 to 7 minutes left. There's a few questions remaining here. Half of them are from my staff, so I'll take those ones offline because I do want to take a few minutes to talk about GPAD. You know, when you go to a trade show, you can see what's new in the machinery. Everybody has their nice booths and you can go talk about machinery. And then you can wander across the aisle and you can talk to people about software. But, you know, there's no place that you can talk about those two things together. You know, you talk about machinery, you talk about automation of a work cell. You talk about software, you're talking about something you can't really see and put your hands on. So 8 years ago, FeneTech created this thing called Glass Automation Days, Glass Processing Automation Days, GPAD. And we did this so that we had a forum by which we could talk about how do we take these islands of automation, integrate them together to create a systems approach to the glass fabrication business. And all the people here in the panel today are multiple time attendees to the GPAD events or presenters to the events. So I guess I'd like to ask both the fabricators and the suppliers here on our panel what value they see in GPAD, and has it helped your business or your company in any way? So Syndi, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Ron. Hands down, GPAD has been the best event for DFI in the 7 years I've been in the glass industry. And Ron did not pay me to say that, but you know, I have been a huge advocate of GPAD for the intimate environment, the event that you spend so much time with not only the fabricators, the machine suppliers, everybody from the decision makers to the folks on the plant floor. I think GPAD, at least for us, gave us an opportunity to get more information out about our company, we had the opportunity to spend time in a kind of a close quarters, intimate environment. And without a doubt, it put us on the map with a lot of fabricators, and we were able to sell machines and get the brand out there. And I couldn't be more grateful really to Ron and your amazing team because it was just an outstanding event, and we highly support it.
Thank you. Rob, from a fabricator standpoint, what value did you see in GPAD?
I've found it to be extremely helpful. Like Syndi said, it is a more intimate environment, but you know, and not to throw equipment suppliers under the bus or anything, but everyone that you talk to will say, yes, of course it'll work, and it'll work with, will it work with FeneVision? Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, we have somebody using it with FeneVision, but then there's always some hiccup. Everybody's process is different. Everybody's methods are different, and even within the same software, the same equipment, it doesn't always communicate in the same way. And so having both of those parties in the same room from multiple vendors and multiple equipment suppliers, and being able to go like, all right, well, you said it could do this. We're all sitting at the same table. Ron, can it? You know, talk to Michael. Michael, you know, Ron's sitting right here. He said you said this. Is that true? And so you can have these people face to face in one place, and it's been invaluable for me. I'd say 90% of our automation is owed to GPAD, and especially everything 4.0 related.
Thanks. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know that I've been going since day one to the GPAD event. The common theme, obviously, Syndi and Rob both mentioned, is the one-on-one networking that you can do with I guess I would just say a more focused group of people. You know, you've got the big trade shows. Everybody's got their agenda on what they want to do at said trade shows. Whereas here, you kind of get a nice view of all different machinery manufacturers, software providers, things of that nature. And then, like you said, Rob, you can sit down with them and really pick their brains about certain topics that you want. And, you know, not only do you get to do that in, you know, a professional environment during the show, but then you also have the nice events and networking events in the evening that give you a more personable relationship with the people that you want to do business with and work with in the future. Okay.
Michael Spellman, you've been a longtime supporter of GPAD.
The first time I heard about GPAD, I got a hold of you right away. I don't think it had been 4 seconds since I received that email. I called you on the phone, or Horst. I couldn't say it any better than Syndi. Syndi really expressed it very, very well. It has been one of the best networking dreams, really, for me in the industry, to get together with the software people, the customers, the manufacturers of machines, and all be in one place, and being able to speak and network as well as have a good time together. It's just a fantastic event. I hope it continues, and I really look forward to being at the next one. I guess it's going to be in Vegas, so that should be okay. But I can't wait till we get back to New Orleans and San Antonio and all the wonderful times we had in the past. They were really great. And hats off to you and Horst for coming up with the idea. And I just hope it continues.
Okay. John Bush, can you tell us about your experience?
I think, like others have said, you've got everybody in the same room, but you can also fact check stuff. So I'll go over and I'll talk to John, Dwyer, or Rob, or say, hey, you've got one of these XYZ machines. What do you think? Well, what are the issues? What do I have to be aware of? And you know, where did you have the problems with? What have I got to look for? When how hard was it to install? Things like this. And you can bounce around between the suppliers and the fabricators, and you know, good bunch of people, and everybody's, you know, will share what they're prepared to share, and it all helps.
Okay, John Dwyer.
Yeah, I've been to several of the GPAD. I think it's a wonderful event. The program is very is very well done every year. But one thing that's an additional value for a fabricator like myself is, and John Bush just alluded to this, is that I can meet my counterparts, Rob Carlson, John Bush, maintain these relationships that we've been able to, develop and nurture for many, many years. And there just aren't a lot of occasions when you can do that. And this, this intimate conference is really a great opportunity to, to build a network of other fabricators and share ideas. And for me, that's been a wonderful, wonderful benefit of attending the GPAD events. I wouldn't miss them, really.
Good. Mike Willard, you have the last word on this topic.
Okay, tough to add a lot of great comments from everyone. But Ron, it's a very well-run event. Things are on time. It's a perfect balance between social and also learning from other presentations. And the customers that show up there, they're really the elite customers. They're the best of the best that really want to learn and see what's up and coming in the glass industry. So you can have those meaningful conversations with the customers, as opposed to the trade shows. We all love glass build and everything, but those conversations are awfully short at a trade show. At GPAD, you can really have some meaningful discussions and plan for that next meeting with the customer.
Very good. Well, we've now reached the top of the hour. Looks like there's a couple questions we did not get to. I apologize for that. I just want to wrap up with a comment on GPAD. This year, actually in early 2020, FeneTech has decided to partner with the National Glass Association and let NGA take the lead on the planning of GPAD and the execution of GPAD. And the reason that we've done this is that FeneTech's a software company, and I think our staff does a great job of planning events. We have an annual user conference every year that's well attended and well done. And the GPAD event, I think we've done a great job with. However, it's not our specialty, it's not our business that we're in. That's what the Glass Association does, and they do it very well. And I've got the highest regard for Nicole and her staff. And I've always felt that the GPAD event was special, and it was very beneficial for FeneTech. However, we want to open this to the entire industry, and we want this to be an educational event that everybody can attend. And FeneTech has to remain independent as it works with machine suppliers, because all of our clients buy from a lot of different people. And we were getting to the position where GPAD was becoming so popular, we had to start shutting people out of the event because we just didn't have room for all these presenters. And so I'll now pass that headache along to Nicole and her staff. But FeneTech will remain heavily involved in help planning however they need our assistance in this event. My comment is to Nicole and her staff is that we do not want to change the flavor of the event. I think it is a unique environment that we have created, and we want to continue that. So with that, I thank all the panel, my friends here on the panel, for helping us out today. Greatly appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you all in person. And I look forward to seeing all the participants here today at GPAD 2021, currently scheduled for Las Vegas, March 23rd to 25th next year. Until then, stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ryan.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Ron, and everyone that was on the panel today. Great job. Very happy that you were able to join us. Like to invite all the attendees to come back at 2:30 for our next panel, including some amazing women in the construction industry and the NAWIC panel that we have coming up at 2:30. In the meantime, please do take a moment to visit some of the product category pages that have just been sent to you in the chat, and visit the Glass Build Connect website and explore the exhibitors and all of their products. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today, both panelists and attendees.